let's go right into the Joel Embiid stuff because I feel like
Let's
I
go.
want to get your opinion on this. Really quick, let me just read this Gilbert Arenas talking point. And this, I believe, was on his show from YouTube. And he kind of goes on to say that Gilbert Arenas on Ben Simmons getting all the blame for the 76er playoffs. He said, well, he didn't say anything. Technically, he didn't say anything. He didn't say anything right. If we're going to put the blame on someone, I'm always going to put the blame on the most talented and the most naturally gifted of the group. And that's got to be Joel Embiid, right? It reminds me of what Shaquille O'Neal was to Kobe Bryant. You have this guy who's hungry, he wants to win, he wants the best that he can be, and then he sees this ultra god gifted player not tapping into his potential. All right, you're Kobe sitting there, they're coming 3 to 4 times a day. Shaq is like, I'm gonna show you up, and I'll show you up. Then I'll go out there and give you 30, 18. And Kobe's like, you practice 3 times a day. No one on this planet can guard you. Uh, that the Joel Embiid thing with me. Like, bro, you're so gifted. If you put the hours and hours in on your craft, you'll be unstoppable to a point where Ben Simmons is just you're supposed to be carrying this team with your dominance, but you're not, and we're not, and we're blaming everybody else. Um, why don't you, if you want, you can respond to that, Pete, really quick, and then kind of get onto your opinion about the Joel Embiid rumor of him saying that he'll win a championship somewhere else and the likelihood of
Yeah.
him leaving.
I think this is just another instance. Gilbert Arenas is the poster boy for why every ex professional athlete does not necessarily have a good opinion on the sport they played. I think he is like literally his picture would be in the dictionary next to that ever became a word for whatever that means. Um, but like, what is this? What does he even mean? Is he saying Ben Simmons could have been Kobe? What's the point? What does this message even mean? It's again apples and oranges. He's literally comparing two of the 10 greatest players of all time who were in their prime together, very different characters, to a guy who can't even get on the court anymore and was good for 2 seasons, and a guy who has never made it to an NBA Finals. I mean, it's nonsense to compare the two.
Mm-hmm.
I agree in principle with what he's saying, but he's doing the thing that a lot of these guys do, which is trying to make it so bombastic and so like this is such a hot take. I'm gonna compare Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid to Shaq and Kobe. I'm gonna get a lot of clicks for this one. Like you could have just said you blame Joel Embiid for them not getting there, because honestly, I agree. Like he does need to be better. He does need to be on the court more. He does need to
Mm-hmm.
produce in the big moments. That is not wrong. The problem is then you have guys like this say some absolutely nonsensical garbage like this, and it makes the argument that it is actually Joel Embiid even harder to make, you know?
Yeah.
Because this is the wrong way to convince people that it's true. Yeah, we've gone over the Ben Simmons Embiid stuff literally to death. It's all parties involved were at fault at the time, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And now it doesn't even matter. Ben Simmons isn't there. He hasn't been there for 2 years. Why are we even still talking about them together? It doesn't matter. Done and over with. The dude hasn't been on a court. Do you want to talk about this before we just talk about Embiid generally?
Um,
What do you think about this? I mean, do you generally agree with Gilbert Arenas? Do you like his opinions? Because I've honestly heard him say like
he's very hit or
a couple
miss.
good things. It's honestly mostly miss as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But
I mean, to me, like I do agree with you in a sense that it's just apples and oranges. I mean, it's hard to carry a team, and anybody that's played the sport knows, like, or anybody that's really played sports in general, right? When you have a team where you have to fill out a couple spots, like one player can really take away from your game. Like, whether whether you're a professional athlete playing at the highest level or whether you're playing pickup at the local YMCA or LA Fitness,
agreed.
if you have one player that's not trying on both offense and defense, or one player that is getting cooked on defense, and one player that can't do anything on offense and just turns the ball over, you're gonna lose the game no matter what. So to me, I feel like I don't necessarily agree with that, or he has to carry him because yeah, Joel Embiid could carry and could do a lot of the stuff, but if you have one player that's a net negative, it's gonna hurt you in the long run. So the only thing I'll say to Gilbert Arenas' point is that I get where he's coming from, but I agree with him that Joel Embiid does need to carry in terms of taking care of his body, making sure that he's good to go for the playoffs because it seems like he's hurt every single year he's in the playoffs. So from
Mhm.
that perspective, I agree with Gilbert Arenas. But in terms of trying to carry a guy, it's tough. I think it's tough because, like you said, you could be the best player in the world. You could average, 45 to 50 points, but if the rest of your team is not picking up the slack, you're losing the game. So,
Sure, and I think one thing too, and this is the reason I vehemently disagree with his statement here, is like not only is this comparison just flawed from the get-go, but the implication here is that the most talented person in Kobe and Shaq is Shaq, right?
mhm.
He's not in the full effort necessary. While Kobe is this dog, he's so hungry, he's practicing all the time. I mean, the comparison is really if two Shaqs were on the same team, right?
Yeah,
And even that's still wrong. It's still not a good example, but this is completely flawed because Ben Simmons, I mean, there might not be a worse comparison of two players than Kobe and Ben Simmons, period, in all of sports. They couldn't be any different. Like their personality couldn't be any different from one another. Um, so to imply that Ben Simmons is an ultra god gifted player not tapping into his potential and that Embiid is there looking at him practicing and saying, "Dang, I need to get on Ben Simmons level." It's, what are you even talking about? This dude isn't going to play next year maybe for all we know. It's that's crazy. That's so insane that he said that. But yeah, let's move on to just talk about Embiid, the quote.
hmm
Um we actually I think we've discussed this a couple times leading out of last season. Like, what is going to be the next move for Embiid? He's not going to be happy being stationary, not necessarily making progress in terms of is chasing a title, right? He's got the MVP now, so now we can't moan and complain about that. So now it's got to be the ring. And I think the interesting thing is people it seemed like for I didn't I don't use social media. You know this about me, Bernie. I don't look at
yeah,
really anybody's opinion on most stuff. I listen to a few podcasts, look at some reporters I like, but really I'm not looking out there and seeing, opinions of just average Joes. No offense to average Joes, other than in the chat. That being said, it seemed like people were surprised by it, but I don't really understand that because if you look at the situation the 76ers are in, it's not good. It really hasn't been good for a few years. I mean, the not to go back to it, the Ben Simmons that Atlanta Hawks series was really a turning point in what the process was and what Joel Embiid and the 76ers are. This
yeah,
iteration of them are at least. It's been ugly since then. They've, had a coach that apparently Embiid liked and Doc. They got rid of him. They have all these guys come in and out year and year. Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid likes him. He's gone. Ben Simmons, he doesn't like him. It takes him a while to leave. Now you have Harden. The Harden situation is crazy because there might not be a team in the league that wants to trade for him. Looking at some of these reports, because I mean, by the sounds of it, if the Clippers had put in Terrence Mann in their original offer, they probably could have had that deal. But
hmm
Terrence Mann to the Clippers is worth more than James Harden is for a lot of teams. So that's pretty nuts, and that puts Joel Embiid in a tough situation.
yeah,
I'm I'm not surprised whatsoever, just in the mere sense that Embiid is going to be Embiid. This is what he wants. He's looking for whoever is going to buy into him and surround him with whatever he thinks is right. I mean, that is the NBA superstar methodology. Um,
yeah.
it's funny. Let me ask you something, Bernie. I have a question for you. I was thinking about this the other day in comparison to, um, you think of like, I don't want to get us too off topic. You let me hear what you think about this Embiid situation before I change subjects.
Yeah. I
Kind
mean,
of.
I think everybody on the channel has kind of heard my opinion. If you guys haven't checked that video out, go check out that live stream. We talked a lot about it extensively, I feel like.
Mhm.
But just to kind of reiterate some of the points that I had, I think the frustrating thing for me from Joel Embiid's perspective is the injury history. Like, to me, this is where Joel Embiid has to get in better shape. We talk about Zion Williamson getting in better shape and we criticize him, but I think we also have to do the same thing for Joel Embiid. so he can be
Mm-hmm.
healthy when he's playing in the regular season, or sorry, in the postseason. Because at the end of the day, we know what the 76ers are going to do with Joel Embiid and the crew that they have right now. They're going to at least be top 3 in the East. They're going to dominate the regular season. But when it comes to the postseason, there seems to be this sort of drop off in terms of shooting, in terms of finishing around the rim, in terms of Joel Embiid, being aggressive and strong. This I want to see that type of Joel Embiid, because otherwise he's just, I would say in the similar vein as like Karl Anthony Towns, a guy that won't go in and attack and drive the lane.
Mm-hmm.
Will kind of shoot more jumpers than honestly I would like him to. But at the end of the day, like Joel Embiid, has to be healthy because he's not available. And we talked
Mm-hmm.
about this at nauseum. You've always heard the famous quotes. It's not the best ability is availability. Though everyone will always say that, and it's true because you need to be available to play. And if you're not, this team is going to lose no matter what. And so, you know, this is another year where the Joel Embiid 76ers should have made a deeper playoff run. They had the pieces that they thought they could have to win, but ultimately they fall short. And that to me is I would say the frustrating situation as it pertains to I would say Joel
Indeed.
Embiid's career.
Well, and I think this last postseason, Bernie, is the perfect. It's the perfect example. He comes in, and I know for a fact I called him out on stream on here. I think we both did, but I think it was me in particular in the sense that when we get into the playoffs, remember he got that injury. What was it? Was it his knee
I
that
think it was
got hurt?
no, I think it was his hand. I think he did something to his hand.
Hand? Okay. Maybe I'm thinking of Jalen Brown was his hand too. I was maybe just thinking it was just him. Regardless, I don't know if you remember this. It gets to the Celtics series. The beginning of the Celtics series, he sits out the first game or whatever it was, right?
Yeah,
And then it's instantly, you know what? I'm going to make my way out there, but I'm hurt, so I'm going to do my thing, right? I'm going to try my best. But
yeah,
he came out there and he's like, I'm hurt. And I remember at the time feeling like if you're that hurt, what do like don't play. You don't need to say it. Like you're just giving yourself a built-in excuse before you even get out there. I think that the thing that I realized in that series was that he's not even thinking about it like that. He's not thinking about it as an
mm-hmm.
excuse. I think he's thinking of it almost as like challenge to the rest of his team to take over for him, or like like I can't do this. You guys have to help me out here, right? But there's a big problem with that. That never works in the NBA playoffs. Like
Mm-hmm.
the best teams with the best players who stay the healthiest win titles.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the exact same thing. Well, like, not the exact same thing, but similarly with Giannis, in the Heat series. He gets hurt, misses a game, comes back. He didn't make any of the excuses, but his guys couldn't carry the load. They got, you know, eliminated by the Heat and they went down. That's essentially the same thing that happened with Embiid, except he needed to talk about it and basically say, my guys aren't good enough to help me get over the hump, rather than I needed to be healthier to get us over the hump. And that's a mentality thing that I think Embiid really needs to figure out. Like, if he truly wants to be a perennial MVP candidate, championship winning guy, he's got to be a mental champion. And I just don't think he has that in him. And I think the Karl Anthony Towns comparison is perfect, Bernie. I think it's flawless. He's a much better version of Karl Anthony Towns, in my opinion. Way, way, way better.
Yeah.
But the mentality is not all that different. It's I have my skills. I'm really good. If you
Mm-hmm.
do this and everybody around me is perfect as well, and I don't have to do this thing that I don't really like doing, but it helps us win games. Like for Embiid being in the post, for
Yeah.
Karl Anthony Towns being in the post. If they did that more often, they'd be better players. They would be. They don't want to do it. They want to play like guards. And I think that is just find it funny. He says, I just want to have a chance. It's like you need to give your team a consistent chance if you want to have a chance.
Yeah.
Every other year, being healthy for 2 rounds is not a chance for your guys. And Harden and Maxey in his third league are not the type of guys who are going to get you over the hump as Joel Embiid. You need to do that for yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's a frustrating thing. So, I think Joel Embiid at the end of the day, it's probably over in Philly. I said it in
You
the
think
last.
this is he's not making it through this offseason on Philly?
I think he's gonna make it, but I could definitely see him being traded because I just think that this team is just gonna, because I don't know what they're gonna get for Harden. I don't think they're gonna get the type of talent that's gonna keep him in contention.
Mm-mm.
But maybe I'm wrong. But I
No,
don't know.
who even could you even name three teams that realistically would even have reason to trade something of value for Harden at this point? I don't think I could. Clippers
Paul,
are literally the
I,
only team that makes sense.
I was gonna say the Clippers, and you have to get Paul George. I think that's really it. I don't think there's any other team personally that I can think of where it's like, yes, we're gonna give you James Harden, and you give us star player X. I don't see Chicago doing that for Zach Levine. I don't see. I mean, I really don't see
No.
any team.
The problem is though, like maybe this is just me being an amateur, foolish, casual in my own way. I don't really think like if they went to the Clippers, or let's say they did get Terrence Mann and Norm Powell, right?
Yeah,
Is that really that much of a drop off from James Harden? I don't really think it is. I think that's about the same. Like it's not an individual level of production, but you're getting other things with those guys too that you
yeah,
equally need, right? So the problem is that the optics of that in terms of we traded James Harden for Terrence Mann and Norm Powell is like it's hard to sell fans on, even though it is technically probably an okay trade.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what Embiid's gonna do, but let's talk about him as like an actual trade, Bernie. Like, where do you think? Obviously, my Knicks are the one that everybody's talking
Yeah.
about, so we can talk about them. What are some other teams you're thinking? What do you think about the Knicks trying to get him? I'm just curious. Like, do you think the grass is really greener for this guy if he goes somewhere else?
Depends on what, and it goes back to what talents around him.
Hmm.
I just don't know, man. New York, I think, makes sense, but I mean, the amount of assets that the Knicks would have to trade away, would they be like NBA Finals contenders, or would they just be like playoff contenders? Because I mean,
They would,
if you're
yeah.
trading for Joel Embiid, like you have, like, this is one of those things where it's like you have to make at least the Eastern Conference Finals, or whatever conference final you're a part of.
Let's
Maybe
say, let's say hypothetically, Bernie. Let's say they do. Let's say it's
the
Mitchell
Knicks.
Robinson. Yeah, let's say it's the Knicks, right?
All right,
Mitchell
and
Robinson obviously has to go, right? He
yeah,
has to be part of that deal or go somewhere else. Then, I mean, the thing that I would say for you, Bernie, is the only way that trade would happen, it would be the 76ers deciding to not tank and rebuild, but
return to the
do
process.
like a soft rebuild, right? Like
Yeah,
kind of what the Pacers did, where now we have Maxi, we're going to get as much value for Embiid and Harden as we can, and we're just going to be young and talented and see what happens, right?
yeah,
It would have to choose that way because the Knicks couldn't go into it and say, "Here's our four best role players," and we're going to
yeah,
see what happens next season. That's not good enough for
exactly.
either team to do that. So, but let's say it is something like that. Let's say it's Mitchell Robinson. Let's
Hmm.
say it's Grimes and like five firsts. That probably is close. It might need to be a little bit more than that because he's the MVP, reigning
Yeah,
MVP.
Evan Fournier. You're right.
Get that guy, dude. Get him out of New York.
That's a
Um,
separate rant for another day.
I don't even need a Fournier rant. People know how I feel about that bum. Um, do you like? Let's say it is. Let's say it's something like Brunson, RJ. It unfortunately probably Randall is still there, and then Embiid at the five, and then whoever's at the three. Like if it's gonna be Josh Hart probably, right?
Yeah.
What does that team sound like to you in the East? Unbiased. Your unbiased opinion first before we hear from me.
Unbiased opinion, it sounds like another, I would say it's another like semifinals or quarterfinals contender type of team.
Mm, it's interesting.
I just don't know if they have the bench players, or the dogs, if you will, off the bench
Yeah.
to keep them afloat. Like, I love Jalen Brunson, and he's a great player, and I think Julius Randle is a good player too. But in
Mm.
this league now, unfortunately, and I think it's kind of shown that way, especially when it comes to uh, the way that the Nuggets are playing, the way that the Lakers are, you know, picking up free agents left and right, they're long and athletic.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with Brunson is that he's short, like shorter. He's a shorter player,
Mm-hmm.
and Julius Randle's also shorter for his position, and so that is the tough sell. You know, when I think about like how you win in this league, how you're gonna win championships, especially in this era where you have very long athletic guys that can shoot. Basically can do everything because they're long and athletic, and defensively they can get into passing
Yeah,
lanes. I just find it tough in the East. With Milwaukee staying long and athletic. I would say Miami is close to that. The Celtics are going to continue to be in contention and still be long and athletic. They just got longer with
sure.
Porzingis. Uh,
I'm honestly worried about them more than I was last year, to be straight
and
up with
and
you.
even the Orlando Magic, like I know that they're a
Mm,
young team, but they are also
gonna be a
young and
problem.
long and athletic. Like they, to me, like we'll talk about young teams at another point. But another team that again got long and athletic. So I think there's just a lot of size and athleticism that I worry about the Knicks contending for a finals. I like I said, I think they could definitely get to the Eastern Conference Finals. If the Miami Heat can do it, then I think the New York Knicks can do it. But I think to win the finals, it's going to be really tough.
I would say, I mean, in my Knicks defense, they were pretty competitive with that Heat team relative to like the Bucks and some games even the Celtics. Like, not trying to take anything away from the Celtics or say that the Knicks were better than them. That's not true. I'm just saying that that Knicks team, they did give that Miami Heat team more problems than they get credit for. If people were watching that full series, it was not that far off. Here's my take on this. Honestly, Bernie, to say
Mm-hmm.
something, people are gonna call me foolish. It's fine. I get it. I'm a Knicks fan, but you have to understand. This is literally, other than Carmelo Anthony, that is the only situation in my entire 28 years of living on planet Earth. This is the single greatest opportunity to add game-changing player to the New York Knicks roster that we've had, right? I honestly don't want Embiid. And the reason being is because I worry more about the longevity. It's not even like are we going to be finals contenders next year? Because honestly, I think they would be if the trade that I said something like that happens and we keep most of our role guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that team is legitimately close because one thing that is underrated is I don't think Embiid has ever played with somebody like Brunson in the sense that Brunson he is not afraid to take over at the end of games when Embiid is kind of looking to maybe let somebody else do it for him. He's
Yeah.
played with Harden and Ben Simmons. He's never played with the Jalen Brunson Captain Clutch himself, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that works really good. I like the idea of Brunson being like a distributor and running pick and roll with Embiid is disgusting. The two of them, that's unstoppable. Even quickly in Embiid is unbelievably hard to guard. Um, it's just the longevity of it, Bernie. And honestly, I would rather wait. Like if the Knicks are, in pole position to get whoever the next big guy is, like everybody keeps talking. I'm sorry. Whether or not you think Embiid was the best player last season, I want Luka or Giannis or one of those guys. Those are guys that I know are going to be in it for 5+ years going forward. Embiid, I worry about that. I worry about the size, how his knees are going to be. He's
Mm-hmm.
always falling down. I mean, you're talking about dude isn't healthy hardly any year the whole way through. You don't see a lot of those guys make it 15+ years into their career as like an impactful guy. So
Yeah. So
I don't like it. I
yeah.
wouldn't do it. And honestly, if I was Embiid, Bernie, I'd probably stay in Philly. There's not much you can do at this point to have those Philly fans turn on you if you're Embiid. You just got to ride with it and hopefully just trust the process again.
Trust the
This
process.
is
Keep trusting it.
this is the new version, and I don't even know if you trust the process, but just be happy that you have an MVP in your back pocket. You have huge contracts for the rest of your career coming up. You have a city that's going to ride for you no matter what. That's what I would want if I was Embiid because I don't think there's an easy place he can go and then say like, "Dang, they are definitively these are the favorites to win a title." Um, be weird for him to go to the Knicks, but it'd be interesting. It'd
Yeah.
be
I mean, I
interesting.
talked I talked about it before too, and we can move on after I just say this. Is just you know Joel Embiid just just had his contract extension, I believe, either a year ago or 2 years ago at this point now. And to me, like, that is when you use your leverage if you feel like, hey, like, this team isn't really playing very well, or like, I don't really believe in this team. So I'm not going to sign my contract extension until you get me X players, right? I think that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the issue. And then, because I think it goes back to your point, a while back ago about, do we reward these players for taking the contract but don't use their leverage to get what they want? Um, I just think it's tough because I think Joel Embiid should have used his leverage to demand the players before he signs a contract extension.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's
you
not
know,
what he wanted then, though.
yeah, yeah,
That's why I get so annoyed with the contracts and guys just willy nilly saying, it's time for me to go. It's like you can beg and plead for a 5 year contract. I'm going to be loyal to you. I'm worth this much money for these many years. I expect you to, you know, stay on my side of things and, have my back.
mm-hmm.
2 years later, I don't like the way this looks. It's time for me to go. Dad, don't worry about all the stuff I said earlier about me and you guys trusting me and me being able to trust you. Forget that. I'm out of here. It's like, come on, you can't just then choose. Because I think one thing that's interesting about this is Embiid lines up that contract extension was when Morey came in, signed on, getting
Mm-hmm.
ready to move Ben, and it looks more like, Embiid is going to be the guy in Philly. Who are they going to get him his championship and MVP? And it seems like the cap for that was an MVP award. Like they're not. Where would you put them right now? Roster they run into next season. I'm just curious. Where would you have them? Are they top 5 team contender for you?
Um, I mean they're top six for sure.
Top 6. Okay. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know because Boston. I would say Boston. Say
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, Denver, Golden State, the Lakers.
Oh, you're talking about total. I thought you were just talking about conference. My bad.
I'm just saying, like legit contender for a title, like to win a
Oh,
title.
they're
I'm questioning if they're like right on the cusp of the top 10, like
they're
8 to
they're
9 to 10.
I think they're eight or nine.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to do all our preseason much farther into this, off season as we get closer
Yeah.
to next season. But I think it's just interesting. Like, there's not a lot they can do to make him feel better for whatever it is right now. But this is the NBA, man. People want to move every 5 seconds. So, I
Yeah.
mean, final thing about Embiid. Other teams other than the Knicks, what do you think is like realistic? What team do you think might come in there and say, "Hey, about Embiid, let's talk"? Think there are
Um,
any obvious contenders?
not obvious contenders. I
'Cause
don't
I
think
have
so.
one that I would be really interested in.
Oklahoma City Thunder,
No, about Houston.
Houston.
If Houston comes to Daryl and they're like, you know what, we guys are not going to get somebody who's a vet for Embiid right now. So here's Sangoon, here's Jalen Green, and 4 firsts. I think they're saying yes to that all day long. Something like that. I mean, it probably, I don't know all the business obviously, but I think that would be a fun situation in terms of Embiid could, go down to Houston and have Ime be his coach, maybe bring what he actually needs to get out of him. That might be the place. I hate to always just say Ime is like this whisperer of high potential, low achieving guys, like, but the only season we've seen him coach, that's what he did. So I would love to see Embiid go there. I think that would actually be a great situation for him. And they have all the assets. They're up there in terms of the most potential like good trades they could offer other teams because they could offer like Tari Eason too. They have a ton of good guys that they don't necessarily need with their weird contract spree they just went on.
Yeah. Yeah, but let us know in the comment section down below, everybody. What do you guys make of this whole Joel Embiid situation? Starting from the Gilbert Arenas, talking about him having to carry the team, and also what Pete and I had to say about Joel Embiid in general. Do you guys agree with us? Do you guys disagree with us? We'd love to know your comments and opinions in the comment section down below. But please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Again, all this stuff helps out us tremendously, and we'd love to know what you guys think in the comment section down below.